So orientation, pretty simple, horizontal, vertical, enough said right there. Open type is something that I touched on for a little bit. It only applies to certain types of fonts. You'll notice that it's grayed out right here. But if I were to turn this into something like Adobe Caslin Pro, it's a font that has open type options. So if I go into type, open type, I can see all sorts of kind of fancy different ligatures that wouldn't otherwise be accessible. And you can see how this is like, I'm kind of guessing and checking like, here we go. Oh, this one's different. Yay. But in order to really get a full set of what is out there, I would need a glyph menu, and Photoshop doesn't have a glyph menu. InDesign and Illustrator, they have glyph menus, and then I'm able to say, oh, these are all the things in, what is this? Adobe or Minion Pro, and this is Minion Pro Regular, and there's more glyphs that are located here. There's all of these icons that are kind of hidden inside of the font that you wouldn't know are out there, and that's what the open type is all about. Those lowercase numbers that nobody ever thinks to use. It needs a better interface. Give it time. People are working on it. All right, so extrude to 3D. It does exactly what you'd expect it to do. It extrudes it to 3D. You are about to create a 3D layer. Would you like to switch to the 3D workspace? No thanks. So this is basically a way that I could mess with it in all sorts of ways. And, this could go pretty deep how much we get into this, but I'm going to not get into 3D right now. Just going to move tools. Hey, look at that cool 3D thing. It can get much cooler than that, but for now, I'm just going to delete it. So create work path. This is something where when you have a bit of type, let's get a bit of type. So here we go. And let's put it at a 0% opacity. Helvetica bold. Sure, that'll get the job done here. You're able to turn the type from this into a working path. So now if you go into your path panel, it's the working path that's there, and you can start playing with it as vector. And then convert to shape does a similar thing, only instead of making it the working path, it actually takes the layer that you're on and it converts it to a vector exactly as you'd expect. So convert to shape, you can see that now I'm just undoing and redoing. It now went from a type layer to a vector layer, and now we can do basically anything that we want. And again, this is an area where Photoshop is okay, but it's definitely something that Illustrator is much better at. There's some jankiness still in Photoshop's handling of vector, but it's way better than it was a few years back. So let me zoom out again, select some type, and go on to the next option. So this one right here, rasterized type layer, something that you probably know by now. It just turns it from a type layer into a image layer, and that's cool if you want to do something. Let's do it for a title. Let's say you want to turn this, so we can also get to it by right-clicking, rasterize type, just completely treat it like an image. So, hey, look at these things that I wouldn't otherwise be able to do with type. And it's just, kind of nice to have. Wait, I'm going to do one more thing just for giggles, Feather is an option I normally don't show because normally you just go into refine edge right there. This is an example of something that you could technically be doing with smart filters, but the warp thing you couldn't do. So look at this cool title. So that's only something that you can do when you change it into a image rather than it actually being a type layer. So yeah, I'm going to undo that a few times, get it back into being a type layer. Obviously, when you rasterize layer, you're not able to change the type anymore. So the next option, rasterize type layer, convert to paragraph text. So there's two types of type that are out there. One of them is you just click and then you start entering words, yay. And the other thing to do is click and drag, and then you start entering words. Look at me typing, I'm typing. And when you do it with a click and drag, it fits within a side of a box, and that's called paragraph text. And if you want to turn something that's currently just normal text into paragraph text, you go into type and you go to convert to paragraph text. I have to be honest, it's not something that I use very often, but every so often, if you've created one line of text and you want to make it into a multi-line thing, it can be all right. It can be good. All right, so next thing that I'm going to show you is that you can go the other way and convert it to point text. So you can go between point text and paragraph text just by simply going up here and using this. Warp text is a way to kind of warp your text in different ways. Again, this makes for a pretty cheesy effect. You can use it, great. try not to. Just keep your text simple. Let's not overdo things. That just leads to all sorts of bad design warp text. There are use cases, but they're not necessary most of the time. Okay, so font preview size. By default, it's set on medium, and that makes it so all of these are about medium in size. If you set font preview size to something like huge, then this looks like, give it a sec, and then it looks like this. So I'm going to keep it on the standard font preview size, but that is something that's changeable, and that's how you do it. Language options I'm not going to get into. I actually have a friend who he works with Hebrew a lot, and so this is a game-changing feature before he had to buy the Middle Eastern edition. But for most of us, we're working with English, so I'm just going to stick with that right there. All three of these are for if you have some text layers that are inside of your file and they need to get updated, so it's coming from a previous version, it's a type that you don't have. So update all text layers, that's if it's coming from a previous version of Photoshop. If you just click update all text layers, then it works with this version of Photoshop. Sometimes there's problems there. Replace all missing fonts. If you bring in a document and it has a font that you don't have on your computer, this is a way to go through and replace all of those, or resolve missing fonts. Similar sort of thing, brings up a dialog to resolve those missing fonts. Paste lorem ipsum. I was very happy when this feature was added. It just pastes in some junk text that you can use, like some filler text. That here, if we zoom into that, you can see it's no actual words, but designers will use it a lot of the time just to kind of fill in space. So people are like, okay, there's supposed to be text there. Lovely. And then the final things, load default type style and save default type styles. Those work directly with the character style and paragraph style window, where you can go in and you can save default type styles. So you can save some of the things that you've set up right here. And then when you're opening another document, you can load them in. So it's just a way to use some of the character and paragraph styles in multiple documents. And again, if you're working with this to any intense degree, you're probably overextending Photoshop, and it's worth it to jump into InDesign. Sometimes even Illustrator is better. But just something to be aware of. Like, Photoshop has its limits when it comes to type. Like, it gets buggy, it gets weird when you're doing anything that deals with paragraphs. But if you just need to throw something really quickly together, it can get the job done. So that's the type dropdown right there. In the next session, we're going to talk about the select dropdown.